Hello and welcome to another edition of what I'm sure is becoming your favourite, almost a viral podcast, I hope, wishful thinking, on recycling. That is, of course, recycle. Don't be a waster. In today's episode, we want to discuss a problem, and it is a big problem, and that problem is called food waste. And basically, what are we going to discuss? We will discuss what can you do with food waste? Where can you place it? What is the best way to dispose of it? And stuff pertaining to that question. You know, I suppose the first question is, why is food waste an issue? Food waste is a problem. I suppose if you go back to the midst of time and an apple falling from the tree, almost like Isaac Newton watching an apple falling. If an apple falls from a tree, it lands on the ground, it rots away, it decomposes, and it creates, compost, natural style compost, nourishes the soil, and a new apple tree will grow. So it really is the definition of circular economy. It is the definition of closed loop system. Pardon me. So it is really, the ultimate system of recycling. So why do we then think of food waste as being a real problem? What is the real issue? And I suppose it is our modern system of how we live. We tend to live in cities, at least in Australia. The majority of us, I think 90% of us, live within a couple of kilometres from the seashore in Australia in what is a huge island or island continent. And with that then we have issues regarding shipping of waste to landfill centres, landfill facilities, and which obviously creates transport issues, which creates collection issues, which creates emission issues. And of course then with that, you have shortage of landfill space, near cities. And also then you have what is a greenhouse gas issue. And my understanding of greenhouse gases in a landfill, that's the same apple that in olden times, in times of yore, would have fallen and decomposed on the ground, is now compressed in an environment that is very lacking in oxygen inside the landfill. And that means that it decomposes in an anaerobic format, and tends to, from our reading, emit a higher percentage of methane than carbon dioxide, which we are told is a more potent greenhouse gas, with a gas that is emitted with a higher greenhouse effect. So it apparently has a larger effect on temperature changes and that sort of thing in the climate. So admittedly, that is not the topic for our discussion. I'm not here to argue yea or nay on all that sort of stuff. But I suppose what we focus on is the more practical aspects, which is obviously not the science, we're not scientists, but we will focus on better treatments for organic material. And so what I'll do is I'll run through some of them. I'll try to maintain a hierarchy, such as, best to worst, or if not, then this, potentially, that format, so that, we can work things out. Most will pertain to, I suppose, a business, a commercial enterprise, which is Waster's customer base, but obviously many of these will also apply to residentials, domestic situations, private households, etc. So I suppose the first thing, food waste. Don't buy more food than you require. Simple old home economics 101. Eat the food that you use, plan your meals, and minimise food waste. Problem solved. Podcast finished. But joking aside, I think we're always going to have food waste. There's not much we can do with it. Second step, again, traditional, is a pet. Pet dog. Dogs tend to eat nearly all foods. Admittedly, again, the vets listening will be giving me grief over this, because I know certain dogs are not supposed to eat certain things. But in traditional societies, dogs and pets would have consumed leftover foods. So moving on to actual practical advice that's not just cliches. How do we get rid of waste? Like fundamentally, you can dispose of your waste in a general waste bin, in your red waste bin, which will go to landfill, and that waste will decompose, as we mentioned, in an anaerobic environment, emit methane. The only benefit of a modern landfill is that a certain percentage, and thankfully an increasing percentage, of those emissions will be captured through gas turbine, creating electricity, and it will power thousands of homes. Obviously, this is probably the least good outcome or solution, and we'll list some that are potentially better. In a business environment, you could have an organics waste bin. So say you're a restaurant, a cafe, a food production business who's making prepared meals, you may go for an organic waste bin. An organic waste bin, you generally just throw the waste in, just food only, and it is taken in New South Wales. It is taken for electricity generation, where it is allowed to decompose, emit that methane, and a more efficient capture methodology that create electricity from it. So it's less emissions reaching the environment, and a higher percentage of or higher degree of electricity per calorie is captured than you would do in the landfill environment. So that clearly is a beneficial system. A lot of companies then will also describe that as recycling, or diversion from landfill is probably more of an accurate description. We are seeing in the residential throughout New South Wales and most states what are being called FOGO bins, or FOGO. I believe is an acronym for food, organics, greenery, and something else. I can't exactly remember what it is, but FOGO, FOGO is the acronym. And these bins are being rolled out across councils, across municipal collections. It was pretty much delayed by the COVID crisis and the fact that everything was on stop for a certain period of time. But as it's starting again, my understanding, the last I read, is that most places in metro regions will be aiming to have these bins available from by the end of 2023. So what's that? 24 months away or less, so 18 months away. So that will be interesting, and it will be certainly interesting to see the outcomes and what happens in that regard. So that will be coming. In the meantime, you have other options, of course. You have, when you're a very large business, and we're thinking here things like food production companies, factories, even large hotels, large restaurants, there are what are called waste-to-water machines. And on initial impression, these things sound almost too good to be true. So a waste-to-water machine it's a large machine. It looks like a large stainless steel tank, and they come in various sizes and dimensions. And what you do is you put the food into it, the waste food that you don't require. It's a combination of bugs and different organisms are entered into it, and then they break down this matter into basically a water format. Water is added, and this food cocktail or food mixture can then be just emptied down the sewer, just directly into sewers. And apparently it benefits the water cleaning system because it helps the other bugs and the processes that are at the water cleaning facilities, whether it's through Sydney Water in Sydney or Icon Water or whichever water authority you deal with. So obviously worth checking, or it will be required to check with your local water authority as to what is required. But that is an option, and the great benefit of that is then that you don't pay for bin collections. You don't have to wait. There are no missed bins. You don't have to order extra bin collections. In theory, once the machine is installed, and you have a minimal annual upkeep, you're saving money from day one. So it is more of a capital expenditure than with lower ongoing costs. So that also is one to look into. Then we're looking into other aspects, which are composting machines, composting options, and worm farms. And you have fundamentally what you're doing is you're composting the waste in your domestic or in your smaller location, whether it's at the back of your restaurant, in a garden. You're composting that, and you are using that compost for plants or giving it away. There are issues obviously with the quality of the compost being produced, and you would need to check with local authorities as to how you can use that compost, whether you can sell it, whether you can give it to customers, etc. And that's a legal or a commercial aspect that really we can't comment on. You can certainly use it for your own domestic usage or for your own plants in the cafe or restaurant. Another option is worm farms, which do a very similar job of breaking down these facilities or breaking down this waste. And we recently found out about an option which is useful for this aspect, whereby they have very user friendly worm farms that can be kept inside offices and office buildings. And the website is wickworming.com.au. That's WICK worming.com.au. And on that website, they sell. You can see the facilities whereby you can have these very, very appealing looking worm farms that can be used to be located in an office or a business, and you can get rid of your food waste. So an office could almost be zero waste in that regard. So that's one worth looking into. There are other options, I suppose, that are coming down the track, which are biofuel generators, and these are very useful in places such as farms, where there's a lot of food waste and you're off the grid, more rural areas, outback or bush areas, and the food is allowed to decay in a similar method to the organic food waste bins. It decays, emits gas. That gas is burned on site, and it creates electricity to power your building. So that is increasing. The technology is becoming more user-friendly all the time. And I think within the next couple of years, you will see biofuel reactors, on every balcony and in every domestic residence in Australia. So that's coming very soon. And I think some people have often discussed and said that maybe in the future people will buy food waste from each other. You'll buy that waste food as a source of energy, in the way that nowadays we trade coal or gas or oil, traditional carbon-based fuels. And in the future, you might be selling your waste food to somebody who can then create biofuel from that and create electricity, which will be clearly renewable and cleaner. So there are lots of options. There are lots of methodologies. Clearly, dumping at landfill is, let's call it, not the best option. There are clearly better ones, and so we'll be I suppose, exploring some more of these in future episodes. We covered quite a lot today in this short podcast, but I hope it's whetted your appetite for more. To find out more. So I think we'll leave it there today. And of course, any comments, any feedback, feel free to reach out to us at waster.com.au. And in the meantime, recycle. Don't be a waster.